Now, voting ends in Egypt today, where President Abdel Fattal el-Sisi is in a pole position for yet another term in office. The election takes place as the country experiences its worst financial crisis to date. Egypt sits with a large foreign debt, over $42 billion, is due for repayment in 2024. In the meantime, the Gaza war on its borders is expected to result in the country taking on many refugees. Francois Conradie, lead political economist at Oxford Economics Africa, joins us for a closer look at Egypt's political economy as voting draws to a close in that region. Francois, always a pleasure and a good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon.
Francois, let's reflect on this election and how it's gone to date, maybe even the environment, that houses this poll selection.
Certainly. So, as I said, it's Abdel Fattal el-Sisi, president, is running for a third term in office. He's been in office since 2014, has had very tight control over the environment since before he became president. When he was defense minister, it was him who ousted Mohamed Morsi, his predecessor. He won the last two elections with scores of over 95%. And it looks like he won't do that this time. So the election is extremely tightly controlled, but as part of this tight control, he's organized for two political figures who are loyal to him to be running as well. It looks like it will be engineered in such a way that they get some sort of decent score to make it look more democratic. Then there is one real opposition figure running, Farid Zahran, but he doesn't have much hope. So the election, today is the third day of the first round of voting. If no candidate gets 50%, then there will be a second round, but it's pretty clear that Sisi is going to win the first round with a very convincing score. There have been reports of people being turned out by the Nation's Future. So that's the big political party that's loyal to Sisi. It's been organizing buses to get people to the polls. And from what I hear, there's a very sophisticated operation going where the price of a vote is set at £200, which is about 100 Rand. Or food parcels and so on, and as I said, transport. So a lot is being done using government resources to get turnout up, because not a lot of people believe in the transparency of the numbers, but it still will be a priority for the people behind this election to make sure that turnout is at least 41%, which is what it was in 2018, to underline the legitimacy of the operation.
It's very interesting picture you paint for us there, Francois. Let's speak about the fighting in Gaza. Has that at all affected the election? I do imagine that the environment is not unscathed from that.
So the big effect politically of the war in Gaza has been on the public mood in Egypt. So a lot of sympathy for the Palestinians. And a lot of frustration that Egyptians aren't seeing their government do more to press the Israelis to put in place a ceasefire. Then there's also, the government's been making a lot, and Sisi personally has been making a lot of some aid that it's been sending across the border into the Gaza Strip. But this isn't really enough to satisfy the public mood. One of the opposition figures who's been ruled out of the race, Ahmed al-Tantawi, he was very vocal, saying that Egypt should do more for the Palestinians, which is part of the reason probably that he was ruled out of the race. So there is a lot of frustration and a lot of anger towards Sisi about his lack of ability to do anything about a ceasefire. You mentioned earlier there's the refugees. Yes, so a lot of people left homeless by the bombing in Gaza are massing towards the south of the Gaza Strip near the Rafah crossing with Egypt, and a lot of speculation that Egypt will end up taking in refugees in exchange for some arrangements on its very high levels of external debt. As recently as this week, or last week rather, the defense minister was still saying, no, this is out of the question. We won't take in Palestinian refugees. but we'll see. That's up in the air and something that won't be decided until the election. For the moment, there have also been economic effects visible from the war in Gaza, especially through Suez Canal receipts and tourism, where because of the way that the Houthi movement in Yemen has been attacking Israeli or any ship with some kind of Israeli link in the Red Sea, that has made a lot of lines take the Cape route between Europe and Asia or between America and Asia, and that's going to bring down Suez Canal receipts. And then on tourism, tour operators are reporting a lot of cancellations by people who booked holidays, especially in the Sinai, which is not far from Gaza.
It is a very bleak picture we're seeing in that part of the world, Francois. But of course, as Sisi secures this election, I think it's quite obvious that he may. What are some of the key things that he would have to address, as he enters his next term?
Well, the biggest unknown and the thing that people are talking about in Egypt, much more than the results of the election, which is assumed to be a foregone conclusion, is whether or not, and to what degree, if yes, he will let the pound free float. So this is now a long-standing priority for the IMF, which is engaged with Egypt. And, over the course of the year, since they started with the current program in place, they've been saying that they want to see the pound free float completely. Now, our calculations at Oxford Economics are that if it is a free float, then the pound will devalue against the dollar by as much as 20%. Which would have an immediate and very dramatic effect on inflation on a country where the people have already got much poorer since 2016, which is the year of the first serious devaluation of the pound. So the IMF, its next review of the current program is scheduled for Q1. So this is the main thing that everyone's worried about or wanting to have clarity about, is whether or not the government is going to let the pound float. Then there is subsidies. So at a time when the government needs a lot of money for debt service, subsidies cost a lot of money, and especially there's a bread subsidy that costs about $3 billion a year, which they have looked at in the past as something, an area where they might be able to save money. But again, that would be extremely politically sensitive if they do cut that bread subsidy on which so many Egyptians depend. So those are the main things. And then the question of whether there might be some measure of debt relief in exchange for Egypt accepting Palestinians, Palestinian refugees is another one.
Well, only time will tell. Francois, thank you for painting this picture for us. It's been a very valuable one. That was Francois Conradie. He's a lead political economist at Oxford Economics Africa.